Hey guys, so I know this isn't the regular filming spot for a Q&A, but this is the best I can sort of muster at the moment due to even more heavy rain and just more damage to my place in general. I will be putting a video before this or after this, I'm not actually sure yet because I've not filmed it. This video, I mean, of showing the damage to my place because a lot of you wanted to see it, and I don't know, talking about donating to PayPal to fix it or donating to a GoFundMe campaign. So I'll put that that'll either have been before this or straight after. But okay, so this is the Q&A. I'm going to answer as many questions as possible now, and then hopefully we'll do another one next week because I have about 50 questions stacked up. There were ones that I unintendedly answered through the newest videos. So there were a lot of 2006 questions, but those were answered with sort of its release and it's the roster reveal and all that. So if you don't see a 2006 question here, it's likely because it's already answered in one of those videos. Okay, so let's get started. Beat a Man asks, number 1, with the inclusion of Shane McMahon's theme song, are we going to see his hidden model from Smackdown Shut Your Mouth in Here Comes the Pain's Definitive Edition? Number 2, similar question, with the NWO theme song and Scott Hall, is there a way to bring that hidden Scott Hall model into the Definitive Edition of Here Comes the Pain? And lastly, number 3, I noticed you had the intro cut and normal arena versions of the My Time theme. Any possibility of including those respective entrance videos for Triple H and Stephanie? Thanks for the questions, bud. Alright, let's answer these. So, firstly, Shane McMahon, yes, he will be in the next version of Here Comes the Pain. A different Scott Hall will be in Here Comes the Pain as well. And as far as Triple H and Stephanie having different entrance videos as well as any new entrance videos, since I acquired that earlier and later builds of Here Comes the Pain, a lot more is possible. But as I've mentioned previously, Here Comes the Pain version 11 might be a bit further out than what was originally planned, and that's just because I'm implementing so many new things to it that didn't make the final release or were never in any of the previous versions that I've done. Keza2K1 asks, say Scott, don't you find it interesting that The Rock's only model in the game is a circa 1999 model, which was eventually used as a legend? Do you think they would have had an idea to have a 2004 model planned for the final game, giving him two versions like Undertaker and Kane, but given Rock was gone by the end of Mania, they thought it wasn't worth having a more contemporary version of The Rock? Just theory I had in my head for a while over this, and thought I'd mention it given the video mentions Rock's early in-game entrance. See, I always thought that the reason they didn't have Rock's 2004 model with the chest tattoo was I was wondering, was there tattoo rights that they weren't allowed to use? I know they used it in Day of Reckoning 1, but I always wondered, was that an issue? Because obviously it wasn't in any of the Smackdown games. In fact, I don't think it was in the Smackdown franchise, right? Till it changed to WWE 12, and that was when you finally got Rock with the added chest piece on the tattoo. So I always wondered, was it a rights thing more than anything else? I'm not sure. I mean, obviously that entrance does lend to, probably they were planning. The other thing that lends to it is there is a Mick Foley and there is a Cactus Jack in that early build, right? Those are the listings there. Obviously, we know that eventually becomes Mankind, and they scrap those ideas. But obviously, maybe at one point, who knows? They likely would have had just a regular current Rock to accompany that Mick Foley, especially because in Creator Pay-Per-View, they would definitely have had the Evolution versus Rock and Sock match as one of the template matches in Creator Pay-Per-View. So may have just been down to they scrapped it because just like they scrapped Foley and Cactus and replaced it with Mankind, time, likely what was going on with television, wanting to promote the legends because as we saw, a lot of the legends they planned didn't actually make the cut. So, you didn't get Ricky the Dragon and things like that. So instead, probably would have thinned the Legends roster quite a bit. And then maybe they thought, okay, well, we'll bump Mankind and Rock instead because people will probably freak out at those. And rightly so, they did. I remember seeing Mankind and 99 Rock and everybody going crazy, being like, oh, it's just like SmackDown 1. So yeah, maybe that's the reason.
Joe Starkos 2 asks, stellar news to hear that Brock Lesnar is in the early build of SmackDown vs. Raw, but I'm wondering, does he have audio files that would take place in season? If so, would that be put into the definitive edition? Thank you, and have a good day. I hope you're having a great day, bud.
As far as season dialogue goes, in that build of SmackDown vs. Raw, the only people that have voices so far are Bischoff and the commentary. I don't think any superstars at all have voices from what I've seen. It's very limited. The commentary is there, and obviously Eric Bischoff's season mode vocals are there, but no one else's is implemented yet. So when you play as anyone in season, well, I suppose when you play as people in season, they didn't talk, but the NPCs don't speak either. So I don't know. There might be another build out there where Lesnar recorded lines, or maybe he just didn't. I'm not sure. But obviously, if I get anything new, I will keep you guys posted and absolutely update.
The Electrifying Great One asks, Q&A questions. Is it possible to add blood in SmackDown Shut Your Mouth Definitive Edition, just like commentary in Here Comes the Pain? Number 2, like you showed us Brock Lesnar in 2005 SmackDown vs. Raw, is Goldberg in that game? Number 3, will Here Comes the Pain have announcer introductions just like in SmackDown Shut Your Mouth? And number 4, is it possible to convert Brock Lesnar's entrance from SVR 2006 to 2005? Okay, so to answer your question, so number 1, unfortunately, we cannot add blood to SmackDown Shut Your Mouth Definitive Edition. Number 2, Brock Lesnar is the only one of the 3 out of Austin, Goldberg, and Lesnar that's actually in the game. Goldberg, they probably knew his contract was up and he had no intention of re-signing. Lesnar was still in that grey area at the time. You know, there was a lot of talk of he might leave, he might not, he might, we're going to keep him under contract. There was a whole court case about it, so I assume they just made him and thought things would work itself out, because it wasn't a long planned thing. Whereas Goldberg, if you remember, he had given his notice way earlier that he was out. And number 3, will Here Comes the Pain have announcer introductions just like SmackDown Shut Your Mouth? No, they won't, because in the prototype, it is a prototype build. It's in the pre-release build that I've got, which has commentary. There is no announcer. So there's commentary, but there are no announcer files. There's no Howard Finkel or Lillian. So no for that. Is it possible to convert Brock Lesnar's entrance from SVR 2006-2005? You might not need to, is all I'm going to say with that. Dominic has a question for SVR 2006's Definitive Edition. Are you going to replace Kane's 1997 attire with his reverse 2000 attire, or any of his older attires that predate 2004?
I was thinking about replacing Kane's attire. I was actually thinking of maybe doing a 2002, 2003 right before removing the mask attire. I'm not too sure. Or the reverse, the 2000 would be cool as well. I haven't decided yet. I have been thinking about, okay, for the next version of 2006, would Mask Kane be a different Mask Kane? And I've really been toying with the idea of probably going with 2002 Kane.
The Nightmare asks, I hope there's a blonde version of Eddie. I assume in SmackDown vs. Raw 2006.
Yes, in the attire pack later this year.
Ben Russell asks, Scott, are there plans for alternate attires for La Resistance? They came with their new gimmick themes and trons in the base game, but kept the tag team attires from Raw.
Yes, La Resistance attires are coming in the 2006 attire pack. There are new attires for Randy Orton, including his Survivor Series 2004 attire, which is very rare. There are new attires for Chris Benoit. There are new attires for Edge, which include WrestleMania 21, the silver. There are attires for all 3 members of La Resistance. There are single attires for Conway and Sylvain. There are, let's see, what else is there? I've got an attire for Rock with the chest piece tattoo, so like WrestleMania 20. The new Batista attires, there's quite a few. So hoping that comes out probably around December. So that'll be like a nice little Christmas DLC where it's like, oh look, you've got 20 or so new attires, which would be pretty cool. And I've already given you 45 or more for the base Definitive Edition. So yes, there'll be a ton of new attires, including La Resistance.
Blogging asks, I don't know about everyone else, but I would love you to talk more about wrestling.
Would you really? Would you want me to talk more about wrestling? I wouldn't mind doing so. I really wouldn't mind doing so. I would probably do it differently. I'd probably do like a weekly highlight show. So, I'd probably watch maybe Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and AEW, I guess. Or maybe I'd leave it up to you guys to pick the shows. I'd probably say 4 shows max, pick whatever, and I'll watch those 4 shows and only those 4 shows. And then pick out highlights, what I liked, and what I think could be improved upon.
DB asks, unrelated to the rebuilds, but I was wondering, what are your thoughts around the time when Ukes revealed the new weapon mechanics when they were revealed in 2011? I thought they were revolutionary at the time, since I had first started playing WWE games in 06, making TLC and Extreme Rules matches much more fun and realistic. Although gameplay was on a downward trend, in my opinion, you're right. It felt cool that we were now able to recreate moments in wrestling that we couldn't before, like John Cena giving Edge the FU from the ladder onto a stack of tables. I'm asking because I want to know the perspective of someone like you who has covered the games since the series started with the first SmackDown game. I'm just curious to see how the more dedicated players of the series felt when they saw this. This is a great question, by the way.
Okay, so when they first unveiled the new weapon physics, I thought, wow, that's really great. I loved the look of it. I think for a long time, fans, and especially people that have been covering the series since the first game, one of the big problems was that as cool as that was and as amazing that was, and also I think that was the time also you could do things like you could do directional like FUs and rock bottoms and cutters and things like that, like RKOs and stuff, and all this was amazing, like weapon physics, all of that was amazing. It was just the problem was that one, the targeting controls had gone all over the place by that point, so it became rather difficult, especially with the dual analog sticks, for some long-time players who just wanted to go back to buttons basically. They found it very hard to sort of aim and get things where sort of maybe your brain would sort of look at the screen and believe like, okay, I'm gonna slam them this way onto this load of stuff, and then instead they would get slammed the other way and it would go completely wrong. It was satisfying when you got it right, but the problem was that it not actually working even 90% of the time for a lot of people was sort of disappointing. But it was an awesome feature, and I sort of look at that as one of the bigger problems of the series. Was anytime they added something brand new, they never expanded it upon it the year later, or they very rarely did. So when you look at, say, 2006, we've just done the whole rebuilding episode, right, where we show off the sleeper system, we show off the knockout, so the double knockout system, the 10 count, things like that. Imagine in a last man standing match being able to play with that system, the answer to the count of 10 system, and with, say, when SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 introduced the outside area which you could fight in. I think like a last man standing match with the 10 count system with that would have been such an expansion on it and been really great. But obviously one game and they removed that. Same with the sleeper hold mechanic. And then eventually the backstage area changed. If you remember, I think it was maybe in 2010, they even changed the outside camera angle where it went all weird and it didn't sort of zoom out anymore. It went to like a weird angle, and things were just so bizarrely done, with no rhyme or reason. It was like, okay, and then this is why I go back to after 2008, right? You remove things like GM mode, and you don't replace it with anything, but you're still charging $60 or £60 or whatever your currency is, for a video game, but you're giving people less, not more. And the new things that you're adding this year might not even make it to next year. But the weapon mechanics, the weapon physics was super unfortunate, because I really wish those things were expanded upon. I mean, could you imagine if you got to WWE 13, 2K14, maybe even 2K like 17, 18, and they still had those mechanics built in with the grapple system that sort of went more back to traditional. It wasn't perfect, but I would certainly say from like 2K18, 2K19, those games definitely, the grappling feels a lot better than what it does in SVR 11. But yeah, it's just one of those things where you're at that point. Long time players had got so accustomed to 3 years of them being like, we're doing this, but all this might be gone, and it just being like, okay, why? And it was like, here's a story designer, but you have to do everything. We're not really going to give you anything. We're not even going to sort stuff out. I mean, eventually they did with universe mode, but like it was such a, you went 2 games with barely anything, you know. I mean, 2009, I still say, like, with the exception of like a very linear story mode that lasts what, handful of hours per time, you have nothing. You have absolutely nothing. There's no real progression. It's so it's just bland and dry, and I just can't understand how they even took the legends out of that game. It's like, how did you justify $60 purchase for that game? You know, 2008 is by no means a great game, but at the very least, you know, in 24/7 mode, you still had a season, you still had GM mode, they still had the tournaments, you had quite a few legends. Yeah, the roster wasn't incredible, but you know, it still had a whole bunch of extras that you could have. You know, it had extra unlockable titles, things like that, and just it had more longevity than 2009 did. Then in, you know, so there was the problem. It was just always taking things out, adding things, and then not expanding upon them or making them worthwhile long term.
Shady Killers asks, is there a way to play the original Smackdown arena with the unfinished entrance ramp and the Smackdown 1 HUDs in the final retail release? Probably not in Smackdown 1. I'll definitely have that stuff for... Well, actually, you asked this on the Smackdown 2 video, which makes me wonder, are you asking this for Smackdown 2? Because I showed that in the preview of the episode. So, okay, I'm going to answer it as if it's for Smackdown 2. If not, comment down below, and then I will answer it in the next one for Smackdown 1.
I have been thinking about ways to incorporate sort of the unfinished Smackdown 1 stuff, well, the unfinished Smackdown 2 stuff that was basically from Smackdown 1, ported over, like the arenas and HUDs and things like that. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a separate version or if I'm going to do sort of a special reward or something like that. I'm still musing over it, but short answer is yes, there will be a way to play with all that stuff. I'm just sort of figuring out how I'm going to present it, and will it just be here's the definitive edition, but instead you have different arenas, sort of the unfinished arenas with a different camera angle, well, not a different camera angle, sorry, but with a different look. So like the commentary booth would be on the side instead of at the back, and then would having the Smackdown 1 HUD and things like that, or would it be something where it's like, okay, here's this, take the prototype version of Smackdown 2 maybe and clean it up a hell of a lot, and then maybe put that out. I don't know, maybe, I'm not sure yet. Let me know if what you like.
Games with the One asks, will you begin showing the Xbox WWF/WWE beta content near the end of the year?
Xbox content will be soon. I know with 2006's release, it got bumped a little. But yeah, it will be soon. I'm hoping still sometime in 2020. Because obviously there's like Raw 1 and Raw 2 to do. And I'd really have fun looking back on those episodes. And I'd love to... I have so much... Like, I have such a big press archive on the first Raw game. Because like I have like conference videos and things like that I would just love to sort of implement. Even if I can't implement them on YouTube, I'll probably make a extended video like I'm in the middle of doing for 2006 for Patreon, which I'll have like press interviews, junket interviews, things like that, and you know, maybe analysis and breakdown as well. So yeah, I think Raw 1, I'm hoping, let's say end of 2020 we'll get to Raw 1, and then 2021 we'll jump into Raw 2. And, I mean, WrestleMania 21 will have a look at what's there, but I won't actually be doing any modifications to it. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. Please hit that like button if you haven't already. Click subscribe if you aren't already. Hit the notification bell to be notified anytime I upload a brand new video. If you can support me on Patreon, please do at patreon.com/Scott, Jay. I will be running a very special campaign soon through Patreon for long-time Patreon members. And a lot of people have been asking me about being able to just pay it yearly and just be done with it. And I'm like, that was never an option, but Patreon is now given that option. So I'm actually planning a really cool reward for that, for people that do that. Yeah, so anyway, if you can, please do, by all means. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and I hope you guys have a fantastic week. I will be back next week